Hello everybody, welcome to a World of Warship Blitz video. In today's video we shall be going through the British cruiser loadout. So I have another video which has a battle in the background. I may or may not put that up, but I am using the screen recorder function on my new phone, and the screen recorder function on my new phone has some fantastic capability, as you can probably see by that small error caused by not being used to it. So what I'm going to do is just show you some of the key features of the loadout and the layout of the various cruisers. I'm going to stick with the tech tree cruisers, not go for the premiums, because I'm assuming that if you're going to learn this, you go through the tech tree, and if you love it, then you go get the premiums afterwards. So the Emerald is probably the first. So the Deny and the Caledon, they are definitely ships worthy of being British ships that are knife fighters, but the Emerald is where the line really starts to come into a lot more of the standard features, the main sort of the main line that I'd call it, particularly because it gets smoke. However, the other features that are particular to the Emerald are that it has multiple torpedo tubes. So it actually has, on each side of the ship, two sets of triple torpedo tubes. Now, if you're fighting against destroyers, as you'll probably see from some of my other videos, I recommend firing them in full spread, because you're not trying to sink the destroyer as much as shape the destroyer's path or deny the destroyer a stretch of ocean or a firing solution on you. It's very difficult to hit destroyers with torpedoes. When you're forced into the capital, facing up against capital ships, then that's when you fire them in single file, because the spreads are very wide. Great area denial spreads, but very poor damage causing spreads. The other thing about the Deny is that it is the last of the British ships that has the sort of the old style cruiser gun layout, in that the guns are up and down the hull in a line. Now what that means is that it can be very difficult to try and maintain good control over making sure that all of them have arcs to fire on your opponent. Now they are single guns rather than dual turrets, and what that means is that if you end up in a situation where you're, let's say, firing off to the front, you may find that you end up with very few guns are causing very little damage. So you do have to show a lot more broadside to get them on. And they are a little bit more, they feel a little bit more uncoordinated. So I mean, that's the feature of the ship. It is a British cruiser. Now unfortunately for this cruiser, there's a couple of features to be aware of that make it a little bit less effective of a knife fighter than perhaps some of the other ones. We'll go for pink. So first of all, and most importantly, it does not have access to the Tier 6 concealment equipment. So that 10% concealment advantage is massive, and it made a huge difference in my win rate. Simply because by stopping firing, I can get out of I can make myself scarce. It means that destroyers have less time to react to me, so I'm at more of an advantage, and against larger ships I can more choose the engagement. So that is a bit of a weakness of the Emerald, and you certainly notice it when you're playing it. The other weakness it has is that it does not have its own permanent historical camouflage, which again, in the British cruisers, those camouflages are excellent. They're plus 4% range for guns, torpedoes, plus 4% traverse, and plus 4% concealment. Those are fantastic capabilities. So let's have a look at the specific loadout. So the supplies loadout, you'll see that is fairly consistent. Pretty much all the time, that all my British cruisers have exactly this loadout here, which is, just peered off the side, which is essentially the high-grade coal, the refined diesel for speed and manoeuvrability, the fuel rations for faster reload, and the high-grade coal for concealment. That's very much standard, and that doesn't change. The loadout for the equipment Now the first two slots are pretty consistent, so let's bring this up. So I pretty much always get the main battery modification one, and that is because that 20% traverse speed means that you get your guns on targets, especially in those hard turns. Interestingly enough, when we get to the elite bonus, you'll see that I also take the traverse there, so I get plus 20% for the main battery traverse speed and the battery modification, plus 20% for the elite, and those guns turn in an awful hurry. The second slot that I choose is very consistent from tiers 5. Taking it back one, at tier 8, there is a different module that goes in there for the Edinboro, which is the dispersion. This is for tier 5, 6 and 7, and you would get the traverse, and for tier 8 you would be getting a dispersion, and the reason for that is that the gun ranges open up quite a lot in tier 8. Now going for this middle slot, pretty much 100% of the time it is the steering gear modification 1. The agility is really important with these ships, and that's why I get the historical camo, because that extra +4 plus this means that essentially it's the equivalent of having the steering gear modification 2, which for the Emerald, to be fair, I have steering gear modification 2. That is the standard for my standard for the Emerald. Now I may look at changing some of these steering gear modifications for perhaps for acceleration or speed. It's a fairly old configuration, but still the focus at the time was on agility. I've become better at baiting torpedoes, so I don't need quite the same level of agility, which means that when we get to the Leander, you'll see that these are in this final slot, it's actually the concealment modification. Looking at the elite bonus, alright, I've taken the torpedo traverse speed. I probably should have taken that, but I'm not prepared to pay the gold, and the ship does fairly well anyway. Right, so that is the Emerald. The Leander, let's have a look at the Leander. Now the big difference with the Leander compared to the Emerald is actually, well, you can see the Leander actually is a slightly smaller ship. So that's your Emerald, and then if we go to that is your Emerald. I'm learning, guys, I'm learning. And it disappears for the Leander. Right, okay then. Sorry guys, right, okay then. So the big difference is you get less in the way of torpedo tubes in the Leander. So you have two, now I believe they're quad launchers, which is very nice. You can fire them single file, but when you see me in my smoke and torp video, I will be firing them as a bunch, because basically that's the area denial. They reload relatively quickly, they've got fair range, they do a reasonable whack of damage, but their main benefit is to channel the enemy into specific paths. Now the big massive difference, apart from anything else, and we'll get to the concealment shortly, with the Leander is the guns. So there are 2 turrets forward, 2 turrets aft, and it is a much cleaner and much a better configuration. It's much easier. Those turrets essentially almost move like a set. So yep, so essentially if you've got firing arcs, it's, you know, you can shoot with one, you can generally shoot with both, if that makes sense. So I mean, I'm not sure if those are the precise firing arcs, but to get the idea. So it's a lot easier to get guns on target. Now if you do a turn away, you'll find that the set that has to go through the full rotation, yeah, they will rotate as a set. So really, essentially, it's like having 2 4-gun turrets. Right. So the other major difference is with the Leander is in the equipment. Let's bring it up. So everything is the same except for this sucker here, which we will bring up, and that is the I take the concealment. That surface detection minus 10% makes a massive difference. The second thing that makes a massive difference, so all these other modules are the same as the Emerald: turret rotation, traverse. The other thing that makes a massive difference is the historical camo. And why does historical camo make a difference? Well, these are really good. These are really good things to have. Main battery firing range, very positive. Torpedo range, great thing to have. Maximum traverse speed, so you got plus 10, another plus 4, makes plus 14, almost as good as having the traverse modification 2, and the surface detection is definitely welcome at minus 4%. So what that means is that if we compare this to the, let's go back, if we compare this to the Emerald, we'll bring the Emerald up. The Emerald has a surface detection of, get this, 8.10 kilometers, and if we bring up the Leander, the surface detection here is a phenomenal 6.45 kilometers. And that is a massive difference. Choosing your engagement, making sure that the destroyers don't have enough time to react properly, that's a phenomenal improvement. So really that's the loadout for the Leander. We'll just run into the... so here I have gone for main battery traverse speed. You'll see during the smoke and torp video, which I'm hoping is going to be out in the next day or two, you'll see right at the end of that battle when I was fighting a Milbertan in an Omaha, that those turrets were traversing very quickly to bring the guns back on target as I was swapping from side to side. Right, the Fiji. Fiji's another small ship, very nice looking ship. The Fiji's fast becoming my favourite. The Leander for a long time was my favourite, but I think the Fiji is an excellent ship. Let's cut that out. Let's give ourselves a reasonable view of the ship. So the big difference between the Fiji is in the torpedoes you've got 3 rather than 4. 3 on that side, 3 on that side, and you do notice the difference, particularly if you're having to deal with capital ships. What you pay for losing those torpedoes, you gain here and here, because you go from 4 guns and 2 turrets to 6 guns, 2 times 3 guns in each turret. And just like the Leander, those firing arcs, the guns turn as 1. So the Fiji means that you've got slightly less area denial with those torpedoes, but it is very hard hitting against cruisers and destroyers. It does struggle against battleships. Against French battleships it seems to do okay, but it does struggle a little bit against destroyers. Right, looking in the equipment, that's all very much the same as for the Fiji and, I mean, for the Leander and, well, basically for the Leander it's identical. In the armory, identical. Yeah, basically I want those guns on target and I'm prepared to sacrifice a few hit points and a bit of AA to do so. Historical camo, I have purchased historical camo for this ship, and just the stats for the historical camo are exactly the same as for the Leander. So what that does, if we take it back, have a look at the Leander. Right, so the Leander has a 6.45 kilometer detection. The Fiji has a 7.12. So it is you know, so 6.45 for the Leander, very, very good. 7.12. It is about an increase of about 0.7. So it is a little bit more detected. It means that the torpedo range is a little bit less than your detection range. In the Leander, it is about 100 meters more than your detection range, which is so small that you can't really use it for stealth firing. Don't bother, I have tried and it doesn't work. But yeah, the Fiji is a hard hitting with those guns. It's a hard hitting ship, and it's relatively agile as well. Right, taking it up to the tier 8, let us go for the Edinboro. Right, there are a few differences with the Edinboro, and let's run through them. So what is the same with the Edinboro? Well, almost the same as you'll back up to wherever those torpedo tubes are. I think they're probably here somewhere. You have, oh no, here they are. Is that them? Pardon me, everybody. I'm going to go in and have a look at my ship and try and work out where I'm firing all those torpedoes from all those times. It's not really very clear from this angle, is it? There is torpedo tubes. There they go. I think they're hidden underneath. There we go. Hold the line, people. Here we go. Found them. They are here. And you'll have 4 on the other side. You have 4 guns. You have exactly the same layout. This fantastic fore and aft layout. It is 3 guns, so per turret, so 6 front, 6 rear. Exactly the same as for the Leander and the Fiji. Your firing arcs, those guns will turn as one. So, which means that I've set them up pretty much the same. If we go into the equipment, apart from one significant difference, you'll see that for the first slot, for the second slot and the third slot, they are exactly the same as for the Fiji and for the Leander. In this slot here, I have the maximum range dispersion. Now, you can get away with it on the Edinboro because, well, your knife fights, even if you're knife fighting, engagements happen at a little bit of a longer range, and you do end up fighting at longer range. And the torpedoes that come out of those destroyers, there's much bigger spreads, so if you're close, as close as you were in the Leander, you're generally in a lot of, you're in a lot of trouble. However, I do make up for the fact that I have the dispersion by taking on the main battery traverse speed. So, although the turrets don't turn as blindingly fast as they do on the Leander, let's say, they turn pretty quick, and the higher tier British cruisers have faster turning turrets at any rate. What about the Neptune? Well, I haven't played it as much. It has many of the same features as the, so it has, it gains on torpedoes, so it has 2 sets of 4 tubes per side, which gives it 8 torpedoes, or 16. It does have very rapid firing guns and fast turning turrets, and it has the same arrangement. However, it is not as agile, and at this stage the battleships are firing much heavier shot, and the torpedoes that come out of the destroyers are in much more numerous spreads. And at this point, the knife fighting capability of this ship is, I think tier 8 is the last of the close-in knife fighting tiers for British cruisers. So watch the space. I may make it work, but if I haven't got historical camo, I haven't made it work to date. I will briefly touch on some of the cruisers. So to talk about the Exeter, the first thing I'd say about this is that I have found that it is not a knife fighting cruiser. I'm better off using it like a French cruiser. Whenever I get aggressive with it, it gets absolutely thrashed. However, the Sirius is absolutely lovely as a knife fighter. We'll have a quick look at it. because basically somewhere around here it's got, I think those are triple launchers. I have never used those, and that is because the Sirius has this incredibly effective array of guns, 10 guns and 5 turrets, so it's got more of its firepower out the front, which is good, because basically that means that you can spend more, you don't get as punished as much if you spend more time sort of pointing in towards the enemy. And when the enemy has torpedoes, you want to basically make sure that you're in a position to be able to get the tracks of the torpedoes to run parallel to your direction of travel, so you do spend a lot of time in a nose-in attitude. Those guns are rapid firing, slightly more rapid firing than on the Leander, but not by much. But yeah, these are lethal. This is a lethal little ship for destroyers. As for the loadout, it doesn't have the same traverse speed, so I've had to go with increasing its speed, its AA damage, and its main battery traverse speed, because I'm really a destroyer hunter. Having AA isn't really of much interest to me, and besides which, tier 6, I'm not sure how great the AA is anyway. For the equipment, it is exactly the same as Leander, from the point of view that you've got your turret traverse, you've got your turning, and you've got your concealment. And because it's a British cruiser and I love it, I've got myself the historical camo, which has all the fantastic bonuses of the historical camo for the British cruisers up to this point, which is range, traverse speed, and surface detection. So the Sirius is definitely what I would say for a pure destroyer knife fighter. It is certainly one of my favourites. However, it does struggle against against heavier ships, although it does fire HE, which it's a significant improvement. The last premium ship we will look at is the Belfast. I won't spend a lot of time on this. The Sirius is available in the as a premium ship you can purchase. The Belfast is not, and the reason the Belfast is not is because the Belfast gets an absolutely savage capability of triple smoke, double sonar, which you can increase to single sonar, and radar. So this thing can hide in smoke, sonar, and shoot. And with a captain with the Mistweaver skill, you are basically waiting something like 30 seconds between smokes, 30 to 45 seconds, something incredible. So this ship is very, very effective. It has it has the fantastic guns of the of the Fiji or the Edinboro. It can fire HE, which makes it incredibly useful during the game. So firing long range HE from within smoke, and if you get near it with destroyers, well, it's got that sonar. It does not have torpedoes, and that's why I rate it slightly more poorly compared to the Fiji as a knife fighter, because those torpedoes make a huge difference in shaping behaviour of the enemy. Of course, the fact that it's got the sonar and the radar means that when the enemy smoke up, you can deal with them. But still, I find that knife fighting in the Fiji is definitely the Fiji is definitely more of a destroyer hunter than this, which is more of a general purpose ship. As for the armory, because it has no secondary armament of any type, no torpedoes, no secondary guns, the main guns are all you've got, and if they're not pointing at the target, you're basically defenseless. So I have gone with the main battery traverse speed. I could have gone with the main battery reload time, but because I spent a lot of time maneuvering, guns not pointing at the target is a bigger problem than guns not being loaded in time. And from an equipment perspective, exactly the same as the Fiji or the Leander, in that we have these the turret turning, the traverse, and the concealment. One difference you may have noticed that may be quite obvious to you is the camouflage. The historical camouflage, I'm thinking about it. You can see I have a bit of gold there, and it's one of the considerations, do I get the historical camouflage for this? The problem with the historical camouflage for this is that it actually has one item of value, which is the main battery firing range. One item that's, and let's be a little bit clearer about that, one item of value, which is the firing range, one item which is useful to have, but you know, is okay, and it has two items that I really don't value, which is its torpedo damage reduction of +6 is nice, but in this ship you've got sonar and you've got smoke and it's agile and it's quite a dangerous ship for destroyers to be around, so generally you don't take a lot of torpedo hits. And the large caliber AA range, well, yeah, okay, it's not worth paying for. So really, I mean, the major benefit is that it looks nice, and the main battery, bringing that main battery firing range up is really nice. So yes, I haven't splashed out for the historical camo for this, because I just don't see it as being quite covering as many bases as for the other British cruisers. Anyway, that is a run through the British cruisers. I hope that provided some useful information for you. Yeah, that takes you through the loadouts for British cruisers for knife fighting. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.